heard about us yet? Well, you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet? Well, you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of State of the Jungle War Room 2.0. Back here live from the First Star Logistics Studios. I'm back with my guys, Evan, we got Daniel, and we got Logan on the coach's couch. Woo. We've got a jam-packed show, guests joining us. We've got my guy, draft scout over at Bleacher Report, Damian Parsons, joining us. We've got the owner of the largest Bengals Instagram account, Bengals Central. If you don't follow Bengals Central, you should be following Bengals Central. Ruben joining us as well. We're going to be talking about all the picks. We're going to break it down, all the picks. The Bengals have 8 selections in the 2026 NFL Draft. I'm excited to talk to my guys. First, let's put the camera on me for a second, please. Okay, thank you. Listen, I'm going to break down the rules for State of the Jungle War Room 2.0. I hope that everybody's listening up here. All right, so here are the rules. There are no trades allowed. All 7 rounds. Every pick debated. This is roster building. So I'd like for the fans, if you can, drop your picks live, the places you'd like to see the Bengals go. And just like last week, we'll be using the TWSN Mock Draft Simulator. If you guys haven't had a chance to use it, head on over to the TWSN website, load up the simulator, make your pick as the Bengals front office, and let's see if you can do a very good job of making the selections as they come in. Listen, it's time for the War Room to start. You boys ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's do it.
I do want to ask you guys a quick question while we're waiting for Dame, right? And we're gonna have Jarrett be joining the show as well. I want to ask y'all, what's a can't miss spot the Bengals have to address in this draft? I asked that because there were some folks last week that were pretty upset with us because we didn't draft a slot wide receiver. I walked away from that draft feeling very, very excited about what we were able to grab. However, is there a certain position group, right, or even player that you guys think we just got to have going into the draft? Now, clearly, we don't know how the board is going to shape up, right? Mm-hmm. But I still think it's worth kind of addressing, figuring out where you guys think the Bengals should go, or they can't walk out of this draft without addressing it. So without further ado, Evan, I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, I saw the same kind of sentiment that you did about the wide receivers, and I thought it was interesting because people thought I didn't want a wide receiver somehow. I 4 different times was like, I really would love to get one, but maybe we get one today. Maybe the board falls better for us, but a lot of that was just a lot of the prototypical 6'2", 200+ pound outside receivers were available every time we wanted to pick, and we didn't want to reach, by a whole round to try and get that slot receiver. To answer your original question of kind of what position I'm kind of looking at, where I think the Bengals absolutely have kind of pigeonholed themselves into having to address, it'd be slot corner easily. As much as I do love the story of Jalen Davis, it is the definition of a replacement level player. And so when we're talking about that, I really think we need to stress the need that, hey, you've already got 2 outside corners that have had injury issues, that are on upcoming contract extension discussions, and you have nothing behind them except a 5th-round pick and a 7th-round pick who's already dealt with a pretty serious injury. So that really makes me nervous, and I don't see like a Mike Pennell style signing right before the season to like a Steven Nelson type veteran. That's not going to quell my fears at all. That's not going to make me feel any better. So I really think there's an opportunity in the 2nd and 3rd round. There's a lot of guys who are safeties or corners that profile more as the slot corner going forward in the NFL. And there's a lot of those exciting products or prospects. And I think you do have the opportunity to get a really, really talented starting level corner to be your slot corner there. So I'm looking really squarely round 2, round 3, trying to walk away with a guy I can consider a starting corner to complement Dax Hill and DJ.
Respect. Daniel.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. Safety. I think that safety is the room that you've got to add depth. And when you look at the NFL draft specifically, there are pockets of specific players, And there are pockets in this draft that the Bengals are going to have great talent on the board, whether it's round 1, round 2, round 3. I think this is a very good safety class. And when you look at the room, you've got to add depth in the room. So undoubtedly, I definitely agree with the slot cornerback, if not safety for sure.
And we got to go to the coach's couch. We got to know what our residential coach, Logan Fulmer, thinks. So, Coach Fulmer, tell us, what's the spot in the NFL draft that the Bengals absolutely cannot afford to miss out on?
I think for me, it's a defensive tackle position. I mean, this position is just incredibly growing in importance year after year. And while the Bengals added Jonathan Allen, that room still just doesn't feel great, doesn't feel complete. And most importantly, there's still nothing concrete there for the future. There's not much excitement now, and there's definitely no excitement for the future. If we can add a legitimate defensive tackle prospect in the first 3 rounds to kind of get excited about and start reworking that room, you'd feel a lot better about it. I mean, looking at the 3 guys there, TJ Slaton's on the last year of his deal. Jonathan Allen's a glorified 1-year deal. BJ Hill's contract's coming up to an end soon. And that leaves Chris Jenkins, maybe, yep. McKinley Jackson, maybe. Like, I would like to get some sort of future hope there. I'm not saying this player needs to be an absolute stud game wrecker, but I would like one that I can feel comfortable about being in that defensive tackle rotation for years to come.
I can only imagine the name that you probably have on the tip of your tongue here. But listen, we want to get our guest in here. You guys know, State of the Jungle War Room, for the first year ever, it started last year, we had our virtual scouts join us. Listen, Jared is going to be one of our virtual scouts, right? The largest Bengals Instagram account. That guy, I've known him for years, over 5 years. We've been friends, great relationship. You remember when I started this thing? Well, not only do we have Jared as a virtual scout, we have an actual scout joining us. My guy, Damian Parsons, joining us. That's my brother from another mother. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Dame in, and then we're going to bring Jared in at, I would say right before each round, kind of get his thoughts on the draft. So without further ado, Bleacher Report NFL Draft Scout, Damian Parsons. Dame, what's going on, my guy?
What's going on, fellas? What's happening?
What's going on, man? I like the backdrop, man. It's like I don't even know where you're at, but it looks pretty cool.
In my office somewhere, okay. Tucked away.
Okay. See, if you see my office, I got a Sopranos poster in the back and all this other stuff. But Dame, listen, you know what we're going to talk about. Like we talked at the NFL Combine this year, I wanted to get your thoughts. I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are on where the Bengals should go. I'm very curious to hear what Jared's thoughts are on where the Bengals should go. Dame, before we even load the TWSN mock draft simulator up, what's a position group that the Bengals cannot afford to walk away from this draft without addressing?
Defense. I was definitely defense in general, but probably secondary. I would definitely say safety, getting the playmaker in the back end. The way that the NFL is shaped now with so much too high safety coverages and wanting to take away the run game. Well, I'll say safety / D, like defensive line, like D tackle. If you want to play at too high safety shells, the one thing you got to do is have guys up front that's going to be able to stop the run, right? Because when you're playing too high, that means you're having light boxes. And if you got guys in the middle of your defense that can shut things down, but also let the young linebackers you drafted last year roam freely, I said look right at Cleveland, right? Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker that they drafted last year, was top of round 2. UCLA was defensive rookie of the year. When you're able to keep your linebackers clean and free, those guys can flow to the ball. They can make plays. They can tackle. They can do everything you need them to do, right? I always talk about this. Baltimore Ravens had Ray Lewis for pretty much his entire career. Ask Ray Lewis what it would have been like to not have Tony Saragusa, Haloti Ngata, and all those big boys up in front of him that allowed him to just flow and find the football and be a fast, physical, explosive athlete, man. So I think for me, it's got to be safety and definitely D tackle.
Love it. Dame, we're going to bring you back in here. I want to get Jared in here. I want to let Jared talk, and get his thoughts on it. Listen, Jared is a voice for the people, by the people, and people know when Jared gets on a show where he speaks and he has a mic in front of his face, he's usually cooking, usually saying some good things. We don't always see eye to eye as to what the Bengals should do. But Dame, we're going to bring you back in here. Let's get Jared in here. Let's get Jared's thoughts. So, Jared, want to ask you, where should the Bengals go? Before we boot this thing up, what are you feeling, my man?
Yeah, Malik, thanks for having me today. Super excited for this. But the first place I keep going back to when I look at this defense, they added Brian Cook, massive addition. I think everyone's super excited to see what he can do in the back end. Boye Mafe, another big name. Jonathan Allen should be interesting to see how the vet does, but I keep going back to linebacker. When you look at some of these defenses that the Bengals had when they went on their Super Bowl run the next year when they lose in the AFC Championship to the Chiefs, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt were the two steady guys on this defense. When you needed a big turnover, they were there. I can think of numerous times Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson are stepping in there, making big plays. And I think we saw this decline in the defense really start when these guys got older. They lost a step. I understand Demetrius Knight, Barrett Carter, the Bengals really view them highly. But going into a year where you're in Joe Burrow's prime, these years are we're getting a shorter and shorter leash here, Malik. You got to have more of a game plan than Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight, especially after what we saw in the first half of that year. So for me, I'm looking at linebacker. I think this is a good class with good depth. So I don't think you necessarily have to reach. This could be something where you could let someone fall into your lap. But linebacker is a position I'm looking at, and also that slot cornerback position. I think you can't go into the year with Jalen Davis being your starting guy there. That's a position that has to be filled.
Jared's not pulling any punches. Well, listen,
I love Jalen Davis.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Listen, it's time to start this mock draft, though, boys. Let's bring Dame back in here. Let's see who's going to be available for the Bengals to pick. Let's get this board up there, boys. Let's get State of the Jungle War Room 2.0 off to a fast and furious start. So far, we've got Fernando Mendoza going one, of course. Worst kept secret. Arvell Reese going second. Caleb Downs third. Sonny Styles 4. Carnell Tate 5 to the New York Giants. Jordan Tyson to the Browns at 6. Jeremiah Love 7 to the Commanders. David Bailey 8 to the Saints. And Francis going 9 to the Kansas City Chiefs because Lord knows they need a tackle. And the Bengals pick at 10. The Bengals pick at 10. And boy, are there some names that are available. I've been talking a lot. I want to let Dame, I want to get your thoughts on where you think the Bengals should go. I know where I want the Bengals to go. And then from a State of the Jungle crew standpoint, we're going to go from Dame to Jared, and then I want to let Coach Fulmer talk. So
I just want to make sure. So Ruben Bane Jr. is still available, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like that's just a pick you don't even really hesitate with, right? You get a guy that brings the type of physicality, power, nastiness to your defensive line and to your pass rush. A guy that gives you inside, outside versatility. You can run twists and stunts with him. He's a great looper. He's got outstanding closing speed and burst. And as people seen through his draft season workouts and pro day workouts, he can dip and bend around the edge and everything. The arm length is always going to be a discussion for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, you turn on the tape, you watch him in the playoffs, in the college football playoffs, where there's a phrase, big time players make big time plays. And he did every bit of that in every single game. He terrorized every quarterback he faced, even and especially Fernando Mendoza. Yes, you run that card up because, again, you can do some wide nine stuff with him. He's going to stop the run and set hard edges. This is a guy that can help transform that defensive front the way you want it to.
We're going to go to Jared here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You're running in this pick, Ruben Bane, every single time. This guy is just going to fit so perfectly in what the Bengals want to do and that vision that they do have for this defense with a bunch of young playmakers all across the field. My favorite thing about Ruben Bane is I think he's an AFC North football guy. You watch him on film, and I think he fits into this division perfectly, that mean, hard-nosed type football. I love his versatility. You can line him up across the defensive line and just let him go get the quarterback, pairing him up with a guy like Shamar Stewart, who you took last year in the first round, Miles Murphy, and now Boye Mafe. Just let them all go get the quarterback. I think that would be a very underrated pass rush rotation. And then, like I said, I think you can get versatile with it. Line Shamar up on the inside, line Ruben Bane up on the inside. I'm running in that pick. Another guy I really like here as well, Jamar McCoy. I think he's a name that's being a little overlooked right now. If Ruben Bane wasn't here, that's a guy I'd be keeping my eyes on, but I'm running in this pick.
As much as I want to sit here and talk about Peter Woods again, I can't because again, Ruben Bane is my favorite prospect in the draft, and I think arguably the best prospect in the draft. And if we are at the situation where he is here at 10 come draft night, everybody in Cincinnati should be jumping with joy. I mean, there's no doubt about the player he is, the ability he has to rush a passer and stop the run. And I agree with what Jared said completely. He just feels like an AFC North football player. And if he is not a Bengal, that would suck because that would mean he's somewhere in the division. That is something I do not want. He's a guy that can make plays all over the field, every facet of the game, and has continued to dominate big time games time and time again. There's been no tackle that has really been able to contain him. He just makes plays time and time again, man. And he's kick starts and kind of I don't want to say finishes the reboot at the edge position for the Bengals, but gives you even more hope for that position in the future to pair with Miles Murphy, Mafe, and Shamar Stewart.
You know what? Can I play devil's advocate here? We picked Ruben Bane last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do that again, and again, and again. Time and time again. Make no mistake about it. But just for the sake of War Room 2.0, can we talk about Mansour Delane? Can we just talk about him for a second? Mansour Delane, listen, I had a chance to sit down with Trevor Sikkema earlier today, and I would truly hope that everybody, if you guys love our content on the YouTube channel, make sure you guys tune into that tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time as we talked about all these prospects. He had Jamal McCoy over Mansour Delane. But I have Mansour Delane over Jamal McCoy. And the reason why is because I just think that Mansour Delane doesn't have a whole lot of holes in his game, and I get it. People are going to point to the 2024 tape of Jamal McCoy and say that guy could do everything that you ask him to do. And listen, I agree. But I feel like if you want a guy that can shut down the side of the field, no question marks. We're talking about the 10th overall pick here. We're not talking about pick 15, pick 12. We're talking about the 10th overall pick. The ACL injury does it for me a little bit, makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? Just a little bit. Because we're basing it off of what you did the previous year, not necessarily what you did this year. And I do have my concerns, especially for a team like the Bengals who've been bitten by that injury bug, who haven't had the best, things go their way when it comes to some of these prospects being the healthiest. It puts me a little bit in an uncomfortable spot. I understand Ruben Bane should going away be the pick, and I'm not debating that, guys. Yeah. I'm just providing us a different alternative. I think Mansour Delane could be that different alternative. I think Mansour Delane could be that shutdown cornerback. Imagine a secondary. Just sit here with me for just one quick second, guys. Imagine a secondary of DJ Turner, Mansour Delane, Dax Hill. Just imagine that for a second. Dax Hill at the nickel spot. Now you don't have to address the nickel cornerback spot. Now you're talking about two potential shutdown corners that you could say, hey, DJ, guard that team's one. Or Mansour, guard that team's one. Now I'm projecting, of course, because the guy hasn't taken a snap in the NFL yet. But what we've seen from the college tape is there's nothing that's going to make me believe that guy can't go out there and be the guy that I'm drafting him to be. That is enticing to me a little bit. I can't deny that a little bit, guys, because to be honest with you, you still have a hole in the secondary, if you go Ruben Bane at the spot. Let me be very clear, because some people are going to say, Malik, you're a hypocrite. You said Ruben Bane Jr. no matter what, and I'm still saying that. But I just want to bring up a different perspective. And I think Mansour Delane being here, I didn't think he'd be here personally, especially the way he tested. It excites me a little bit. Can't lie.
Yeah. Real quick. The comparison I would make for these two, and it's a little bit off, but it's kind of like the Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner debate a little bit. I remember looking back, and in that class, I mean, everybody was obviously and respectfully high on Derek Stingley, but remember, I believe it was a foot injury for Stingley. He only played a couple of games. And that was kind of the debate. It was like, all right, Sauce had a phenomenal year, and then you have Stingley, who is a clear-cut elite prospect, but he was dealing with injuries. So I think from a GM perspective, putting my GM cap on, I think they would look at it and say Delane is the safer prospect just because you saw him on the field within this past year. And if we're looking at the Bengals, if this is the actual board and we're on the clock, I do think I would probably go with Mansour Delane over Jamad McCoy if we're talking cornerbacks. Simply because the knee and the position the Bengals are in, you're in a win now position. So,
well, we have the cornerback whisperer on the show right to my left, and he's usually a guy that's always saying, we need to draft a corner. We need to draft a corner. Evan, are you going to say it for the people?
I love corner here. I do. And I'm with you guys. We talked last week a little bit about Ruben Bane and why that's the right option. And Daniel and I even kind of went back and forth about, that versus the secondary, what provides more value both on the field contract wise, and use that to split hairs. Again, we're splitting hairs with a lot of these guys here. You guys know I'm a big fan of Mansour Delane. That pro day was nice, even though, gets a little bit of the LSU juice on the pro days, as they tend to a little bit. But a guy who just this past year especially was excellent in coverage, only allowed 14 receptions on 35 targets, 11 forced incompletions, 2 interceptions, passer rating of 31.3 when targeted. One of my favorite stats is that it is statistically better to throw the ball into the ground every play as opposed to throwing it into Mansour Delane's coverage in that instance based on those stats. So obviously not something to be taken too seriously, but always fun when that happens. I've not talked about Jamad McCoy for a lot of the reasons that you said, Malik, where you don't have last season's tape. And now that he has had his pro day yesterday, you see the 4.37 40-yard dash. You see the 38-inch vertical jump. You see the 10-foot 7-inch broad jump. So you see that explosiveness there that you kind of expected. I think he gives you a little bit more of that like size length that you want out of, especially just arm length and wingspan that you might want. And I think he's probably a little bit more patient and sudden in man coverage. I think he's probably a little bit more comfortable than Mansour Delane is a little bit. That's not to say that Mansour Delane can't hold up there at all. He was excellent, near 98th percentile in man coverage last year. I just think that Mansour Delane is more of that guy who you definitely feel really good about. If he's your second corner, you feel fantastic about where your secondary's at. I think he'll be kind of like right on that cusp of like, it's tough when you get drafted as a corner this early because you've got the prototypical size, the production, the ball skills. You generally, if you're going in the top 10, you've got all that complete profile. And Mansour Delane is just maybe a little bit undersized for what people would typically want out of a boundary corner. And so I don't have any problem with people kind of picking and choosing their flavor. I'm probably going to go forward seeing that Jamad McCoy looked healthy, is putting up these numbers, that I'm going to try and proceed like, hey, I'm not a doctor. I'm not seeing them. If everybody's moving forward, like he's healthy, he looks healthy, I'm going to have to leave it up to the teams and their doctors to try and figure things out. So it's going to be kind of hard for me as I revisit and kind of look back on that now. Might have to start splitting hairs and figure out who I want to take if this scenario kind of ends up on the board.
I feel that. Guys, remember this exercise, we're not predicting what the Bengals would do.
Yeah.
We are acting as the Bengals front office. I'm going to take a seat back here. I'll just say this. Ruben Bane Jr. should be the pick, right? But I do think that I'm salivating a little bit with the idea that Mansour Delane is still on the board, especially not having DJ and Dax locked up yet. I don't want to be in a spot next year where I'm like, we got to go corner because one of these guys walked in while we're in a hole now. That's the spot I don't want to be in. But again, maybe it's one of those things you don't think about the future. You just draft. What's the, what do we always say? Best player available. Draft best player available. Trust your board. Trust the process. But before we make that selection, Dame and Jarrett, final thoughts. Who should be the pick at 10?
I said Bane. When it pertains to the McCoy Delane conversation, Delane was so good in 2025. McCoy was an absolute stud in 2024. The ball skills, the instincts, the smooth hips, the ability to play soft press coverage, the ability to play zone, squat, sit, read from 1 to 2, take away 2, and get an interception. Like, he gives you so many different things as well, and he's a bigger player as well from a length standpoint. I think, if the Bengals were to draft him, I just want to speak to that point, Bengals fans, if you were to draft McCoy, it's a situation where your team doctors looked at his medicals at Indianapolis and got the green light, right? They got the green light. like John Legend. They're not worried about it. They are fine. There's no red flags that popped up, and they will go with it. But again, for me, I just think about the simple fact of I got to deal with Lamar, and that's pretty much it. I got to deal with Lamar, and I want a guy like Bane to be Bane to Lamar's Batman in that situation, right? I want to get after Lamar, harass Lamar, stop the run game. I think Bane Jr. makes the most sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with Dame. I think you look at the Super Bowl this year and what the Seahawks were able to do to Drake May in that Super Bowl. And with that pass rush rotation they had, you talk about how Mike McDonald, all he cares about is pressure and applying that on the opposing quarterback. And you saw how successful they were able to do that in the Super Bowl. If Bane's off the board here and we're not going Bane, I think you're in a great spot, in a really rare spot, to where you're able to choose between the top 2 cornerbacks in the draft class. That's really rare for a team to have that option at pick 10. So like Dame said, if you're even considering McCoy, his medicals have to be perfect. I think they're 2 phenomenal players. I think their games will both translate really, really well into the NFL. It's just you have to be sure about McCoy's medical history and how that's going to age. And if you have even the slightest question, you have to go Delane there, just because you can't afford to miss on this pick. You just can't with where the Bengals are right now.
Dang, man, can I ask you a question real quick? I'm going to put you on the spot real fast. Just you don't have to go too far into it. I'm just curious to pick your brain a little bit as we're all having these debates. And while we have you here, if you've got Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, and Ruben Bane, and you can rank them in order of what you would like to see as a dream scenario for the Bengals, all these guys end up on the board, what would you rank them 1, 2, 3 as kind of your preferred guy for the Bengals to get in terms of the impact they'd give them?
Oh man, that's a really good
It's
question.
a tough one. It's the question all the Bengals fans are asking, so I got to.
That's a very tough one. I know Downs is the consensus top prospect in this class.
I'm really asking you how you feel about positional value. I'm trying to be, yes.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest positional value guy. I do value it, but Bane is just a game record to me, man. Yeah. And he's one of those guys that I just don't, I'm not betting against. You know what I mean? So I'll put Bane at 1. I would put, Sonny Styles with that young linebacker core would be a lot of fun too. But I would go Bane, Downs, and then Styles.
Okay.
Bane, I just rather have a guy like Bane, because then I feel like Bane's one of those picks. You don't make it, he comes back and you end up playing him, and it bites you in the butt. Like you like, oh, he's a Hall of Famer, he's a gold jacket guy. Because just listening to him at the combine, he's wired differently, and I like guys like that.
Awesome.
I respect it. Well, boys, listen, we've spent 27 minutes, maybe about 20 minutes debating this pick through. If this was real, we probably would have been passed up, and we probably would have been on to the third overall pick. But let's play it as if this is the TV ads playing commercials and the pick came in already, and we're just waiting. The commissioner walks up. I think we all know where we're going.
Yep.
For the second week in a row here on State of the Jungle War Room 2.0, the Cincinnati Bengals select my draft dream, Ruben Bane Jr., and we're happy. And we're happy. We talked about what Ruben Bane Jr. could be for this Bengals defense. He could be a guy that could be a tone setter, an identity setter. We're on to round 2. I'm excited to talk it through. But while we're waiting for the picks to come through, I want to talk to Jared. I want to get your initial reaction. Ruben Bane Jr. selected as the pick. How do you feel Ruben Bane elevates this Bengals defense? Where do you think he fits with the addition of Boye Mafe, with a guy like Myles Murphy? How do you feel about that?
I think the greatest strength for this pick is, one, you got a phenomenal player at 10, probably a player who shouldn't be there at 10. You were able to get great value at that pick. But I think the best thing as a young player, he's coming in and he's not going to have to be a 3-down guy right off the bat. This is a guy you can rotate in with all these young players you have on the defensive line. You went out and you spent really big money on Boye Mafe. You have an emerging guy in Myles Murphy who really started to break out towards the back half of last year. Shamar Stewart, it's still too early to be out on a guy like that who has so much more developing to do in the NFL. I think the best part about this pick is it's what can you give me now? And you're not going to have to play this massive role. Ideally, we want to get you on the field as much as we can, especially in those passing situations for opposing offenses. But that's the best part of this pick, is that you want a lot out of him early, but you're not expecting the world from him.
Dame, how do you feel a guy like Ruben Bane Jr. fits this Bengals defense? Do you have any concern about this potentially stymieing the growth of a guy like Shamar Stewart or a Miles Murphy, who seems to be like a guy that's ascending for the Cincinnati Bengals? What are your thoughts on Ruben Bane Jr.? Because these are real concerns that people are going to have.
So I don't have the concern simply because of the versatility alignment-wise, right? And I think I think I might have said this to you while we were in Indianapolis. With Shamar's size and strength and speed and just raw tools, like until he's developed that pass rush repertoire on the outside and the IQ to know how he wants to beat tackles, why not reduce him down as an interior rusher on certain sets? Like I'll go back to that team that beat the Patriots, that Giants team of, O.C. Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, like Michael Strait, that NASCAR package they ran with 4 defensive ends, you could legitimately do that. Well, you have Boye Mafe at one because he's more of the stand-up true edge rusher. And you look at Miles Murphy, you can put him that's a guy that has the size and length and athleticism. He can reduce down over guards. Him, Bane, or Shamar Stewart have the physical ability to overwhelm interior offensive linemen and really stress a 5-man protection situation to where teams, you go wide 9 with a package like that. I got speed, I got length, I have strength, and I have dogs that can absolutely I'm a big proponent of closing. I want to make quarterbacks claustrophobic in the pocket. I want to close all 4 quarters, give you no room to work and no room to wiggle out of. I don't want you hitting that little pirouette and spinning out of the pocket. I want to give you no space to get free. I want to close the edges. I want to close the interior and really make you throw from either muddy pockets or we're getting the sack. So that's what I look at is in that situation, the DC just has to go in the way back machine to that Super Bowl, to that season with the Giants, look at that tape and see how they utilize that NASCAR package and run with it.
Man, I love what you said there, man. I think it's so important. People think that, when it comes to pass rushing, you just pin your ears back and you just rush the passer. I'll keep saying it time and time again. You have to earn the right to rush the passer. To me, you can never have enough good corners, and you could certainly never have enough good defensive linemen. To me, Ruben Bane Jr. brings something that nobody on this Bengals defensive line currently brings. With all due respect, some of these people are my friends. I'll be honest with you. Ruben Bane Jr. is a dog. Ruben Bane Jr. is a tone setter. Ruben Bane Jr., I just think he brings a certain attitude. He brings a certain level of fear, dare I say, to this Bengals defensive line. You look at what the Giants did, and maybe some people will think this is a poor example. Kayvon Thibodeau, they didn't care that they spent a first-round pick on Kayvon Thibodeau, right? They still drafted Abdul Carter. They didn't care that they had a Brian Burns at safety. You know what they said? They said, we might not have the most prolific offense. We might not have the best secondary, but one thing we will have is we'll have a group of dogs on the defensive line that is going to provide hell on opposing offenses. We're going to give quarterbacks nightmares every single time you drop back. You better hope that you have a Trent Williams at left tackle. You better hope that you have all pros on the offensive line because we're going to make life difficult for you. And for me, there were too many times where the Bengals lacked that. They lacked the effort. They lacked the guys that are able to get to the quarterback. Too many times that I see guys not staying in their lane, gap integrity, and it affected them so many times. Look at that Bears game, man. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson were able to run up and down on this Bengals defense. Listen, that might be lost on some folks, and folks want to talk about the last few games of the season. No, I still want to talk about the games that live in infamy in my head, and that was early in the season when they couldn't stop a nosebleed. And guess what? Credit to guys like DJ Turner, Dax Hill. They were doing their job. They were doing what they were supposed to do. Respectfully, when they got Cam Taylor-Britt out of there, as a starter, and they replaced him. Obviously, we all know the injury and all that stuff happened as well. The Bengals secondary started to play a lot better. Jordan Battle was starting to make some plays. There were some lapses there as well. But to me, I feel like the Bengals secondary, for all the things that I said about Mansour Delane, and I certainly do feel that about Mansour Delane, I feel like the Bengals secondary is going to flourish now because you have a guy like Ruben Bane Jr., because you have guys like Boye Mafe, because you have guys like Jonathan Allen. And some people might say, those guys are similar. They cause chaos, right? But they don't have all the stats. But the Bengals need that. The Bengals didn't have a lot of chaos creators. To me, there's chaos, but then there's also controlled chaos. Ruben Bane Jr., Boye Mafe, Jonathan Allen does it all for you. Boys,
Malik, can I jump in real quick and add something real quick before we get ready to round two? The other benefit of adding a guy like Bane, he is a workman, a workhorse, right? So you're talking about setting a culture, a tone, not just on the field, but in the locker room. So you're talking about training and watching guys train. Coaches and the decision makers will be able to watch a guy as a rookie, a Ruben Bane come in, and he's the first one in, last one out type situation. The motor that he plays with, even when you think you stalled out the first maneuver, he's still fighting to get to the quarterback. And if you going into let's say Monday morning film study, and if you lost the game and the pass rush just wasn't doing their job, and you pull up the tape and you see he's the one going 100 miles per hour every single snap, and you see the guys that aren't, that makes the defensive coordinator's job a lot easier to figure out, okay, let's have that discussion. This is the effort we can't have. This young rookie came in and brought effort to this pass rush. Everybody else needs to meet that level. And if you're not going to meet that level, we'll find a bus for you and we'll get you traded up out of here.
Man, I love it. I love it, man. I listen, just as excited as you are for the pick, I'm excited for the pick. I hope that the board falls that way. But boys, listen, we got to get to round two, pick 41. We got Jared for this round, next round. We got Dame for the entire draft, which I'm really excited about. But let's talk about this board. I've been talking a lot. Let's let Coach Fulmer jump in here. I want to get his thoughts on some of the guys that are up there. Logan.
Dana, can you pull up the corners for me too? Just want to take a look at the whole board before I continue to talk. I mean, just like the cornerback position, D'Angelo Ponce today, the pro day is absolutely insane. I mean, I don't know what his 40 got verified at. I know he ran in the low 4.3s, but just a true competitor there as well. I mean, he probably could provide some of that inside-outside versatility. He could come in and probably start in the slot. If for some reason that doesn't work out, put him outside. His height has never mattered. But again, a guy I talked about last week a little bit that I want to come back to is Christian Miller again, man. I'm a big believer in just completely retooling this defensive front. I need it to be overhauled. I need this interior to have some life. I talked about it before, as the show was starting, about how I want the defensive tackle room to have some hope, to have some excitement. And Christian Miller is one of my favorite defensive tackle prospects in this draft. Georgia continues to keep producing them, pumping them out. Another long, lanky interior defensive lineman. And a lot like Ruben Bane, just plays really freaking hard. He's all over the field. He's playing 100 miles per hour at all times. I think if I'm looking at two positions and two specific players, it's between Miller and Ponce for me very early. I like Brandon Sisse to a degree, a good tackling corner, but I think Miller and Ponce are the two guys that catch my eye immediately.
All right. Dame, give us your thoughts a little bit on some of the prospects that are still here on the board. Let's also not discount offensive line. We got an offensive lineman sitting here, man. But I want to get your thoughts on this board, Dame.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like Christian Miller. I think he would be a good fit here as well. You're talking about having him along with Miles Murphy, Boye Mafe, Ruben Bane, and then just like he said, retooling that defensive line room makes a lot of sense. What safeties are on the board? Because this is a pretty good safety. I like this safety class a lot.
We've got Mario Ramsey, AJ Halsey, Bud
Clark, yes, sir. So again, I'm all about culture changing, right? And I want this defense. If I'm the Bengals, I want this defense to be fast, to be physical. I want this defense to strike fear in the minds of receivers and minds of quarterbacks. And so number one, Malik, we can still get Bud, a little later. I'm just saying we still get Bud a little later. But I absolutely love AJ Halsey here. I remember studying him back at Houston, and I wasn't just a couple years ago. I wasn't wowed by the coverage ability at Houston. Felt like he was more of a mercenary at Houston. He was a heavy hitter, headhunter, just a jaw rocker. He was a guy that was going to lay that shoulder pad into you and put you down. And I love safeties like that. Today's NFL, it doesn't allow you to be as physical as we're accustomed to, but he fits just a hard hitting safety. But then you see him go to LSU, and the coverage ability really flourished and blossomed last year. Being able to bait quarterbacks, being able to go from 2-1 and rotate down, get in the middle of the field, play robber technique and different things of that nature, and take the ball away. The ball skills shine for him. And I think being able to add him to this secondary makes a lot of sense. And again, because I think with Bud Clark, I want to use him as kind of just my Swiss Army knife, my chess piece in that situation where he's probably going to be my big nickel, to be completely honest with you, unless you want to move Dax into that role. But seeing Bud and what he did at the Senior Bowl covering wide receivers in 101s and in team drills, you feel great about it. So safety-wise, I would love to go A.J. Halsey here, but it depends on what corners are also available.
All right.
He's over here laughing at my handwriting.
No, yeah,
he's
got chicken scratch. You write like a doctor, man. You're wild.
Listen, I'm over here saying go after Damon. He's just sitting
I'm about to jump on there with Damon and Logan with the Christian Miller hive. All right, hey, Christian Miller hive, stand up. All right, now sit back down because we ain't talking about Christian Miller right now. This is D'Angelo Pons time. All right, and it's really not that difficult for me. If he's here, I'm really excited about this pick. I know there's a lot of other guys that can provide a similar skill set to you. I like a lot of guys here. They all have different kind of blemishes on their report overall. Like Keontae Scott is a little bit older. Chandler Rivers, just again, not quite as explosive, not quite as physical as a guy like D'Angelo Pons, but still very talented in his own right. Brandon Cisse as well. But D'Angelo Pons, man, despite his size, he plays like an absolute missile. I mean, just coming downhill, looking to make contact, never afraid. Run defense grade for last year was up and above the 90 percentile, so the size wasn't really limiting him in that respect at all. 11 forced incompletions last year. Coverage grade off the chart. Zone, man, not as well, but still like just absolute explosive athlete. And I always say, if you're going to be undersized at any position, you have to test like an elite athlete. Otherwise, you're just going to end up as kind of that mid-tier kind of prospect. And to see him with, like Logan said, the low 4.3 40, the 43.5-inch vertical jump that's 98th percentile, that's a level of explosion, physicality. Like, give me mini Mike Hilton. Let's just go ahead and just move on. And now we have a starting corner in the slot for the next couple of years. And I think even despite his size, you wouldn't want him to live there, but I think he could moonlight for you on the boundary here and there if you feel like you need to lean on him in that regard a little bit. So I feel like he just immediately starts for you, fills an immediate need, gives you a little bit more flexibility as you're going forward, negotiating those contracts, adds to the depth of the room. I think this is a really easy pick for me to make in my mind.
Something I wanted to talk about with Pons is something I talked about with Ruben Bane last week. People want to talk about Ruben Bane's arm length at a nauseating pace. People want to bring up Pons and his height, and people want to just within prospects in general, you see something that could be a problem and you want to label it a problem and you want to do everything you can, talk into existence and make it this bigger thing. But it's not a problem to me when you watched a film, and it's never been a problem. Ruben Bane arm length has never been a huge problem on film, not once. D'Angelo Pons' size, height has never been a problem on film once. Like there's things, yes, these are factors that you want to consider, but I'm not going to sit here and freak out about these things when the film has never showed them to be massive game-changing problems for these people. They have skills, they have traits to overcome them. And for Pons today, exactly, he showed it, the jump, the speed, the physicality he's already shown throughout the whole season. These things can be labeled as problems, but again, I'm not saying just to completely ignore them, but I get a lot less concerned about them when they don't necessarily show up on film. And Pons, specifically his height, has never really hindered him at being a successful corner at the collegiate level. Obviously, the NFL is a different beast, but I still envision him being pretty successful there as well.
Before Daniel goes, I want to give a chance for Jared to give his thoughts on where the Bengals should go with this pick, because like we did in the second round last week. We're going to allow our virtual scout to make the pick. So, Jared, the pressure's on you. I'm going to let Daniel sell you on where he thinks you should go, but we do want to get your thoughts first on where you would like the Bengals to go at this spot.
Yeah, I totally agree with where everyone's looking here. I think D'Angelo Pons makes so much sense with where the Bengals are currently at roster-wise. The one position I'd like to take a look here is linebacker with Jake Golday and see if Jacob Rodriguez is still on the board. Those are two players that I go back and forth with. It looks like Jacob Rodriguez is not on the board, but I think Jake Golday is a guy who I definitely consider here. Like I said, I have a hard time going into the season with Oren Burks as my linebacker 3 on this team. So I think this is a Cincinnati kid, someone who's familiar with the area, highly productive guy, and kind of like Ruben Bane as well, that AFC North style of football. I think that trend continues with a guy like Jake Golday, can play close to the line of scrimmage like Al Golden likes his linebackers to do, has some juice in the pass rushing game too. So a guy I totally consider here, but I think D'Angelo Pons is someone else you have to consider.
Yeah, I wish I could be the devil's advocate and give you guys something different. But for me right now, I'm going D'Angelo Pons. And the one thing I'll add to this is it was almost like, I was at Arizona State and I watched Jack Jones a lot, and completely different players speed-wise, but Jack undersized, but he played on the boundary. And that's the thing I think a lot of people are missing as well with Pons. Like, this is not a Keontae Scott or somebody else that was specifically in the slot. He was playing boundary at his size. And that's one of the things when we talk about, obviously, their play. But when you talk about just taking on the number one receiver, and you talk about taking on the boundary receiver at his size, at the NFL level, that gives me at least a little confidence. Hey, if we're in a pinch, you can play boundary respectfully outside of your size versus nickel only guys. You can't push them to the boundary. So Pons for me would definitely be the pick. And I think seeing him run this 40 time is definitely going to push him into this upper tier of the second round.
Can we just look at the board for one quick second? Listen, I understand the Christian Miller thing. Me and Dame talked at length about Christian Miller. I do wonder, does he have more to provide from a pass standpoint? That is some questions that I have. I think he does. I certainly think he does. I think he has violent hands, but you wished you saw a little bit more. Not just talking about how do you pronounce this guy's last name? I always say it wrong. Ian
Thomas?
Max
Ehenicher.
Mac Ehenicher. I wonder, does he make sense here, especially knowing the questions at tackle? But I don't even want to talk about that for a second. Can you go to center for a second for me?
Yeah.
Woo. Senat's is interesting to me. It's interesting to me. You don't have a solution at the offensive line, once.
Don't look at me. I ain't helping you here.
You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just simply providing different perspectives. You know what? I won't say anything. I will not say anything. I'm going to shut up here because it is clear that my co-hosts do not see eye to eye with me. They think they're looking at me like I have two heads. I'm simply providing a different perspective because guess what? While offensive line is not an issue in the year of 2026 and Joe Burrow has his first returning offensive line for the first time since he's become a pro, it can quickly become an issue in the future. Again. Guess what? If Matt Lee was going to be that answer at center, I would have thought that he would have probably replaced Ted at the center spot. And let's not act like Ted is some all-pro center. He's not that. He's a good starter. Let's not act like a better player can't come in and replace him. Anyway, I'll chill. Right? I'll chill on that. I'll let Jared make the selection. Maybe I'll stand my ground in the third round for Bud Clark or somebody else. Who knows? Jared?
Yeah, I love how the board fell to us here in the second round. I think the Bengals are going to get a really, really solid player in the second. I think someone's going to fall to them. And I think they're going to make an impact day one for this team. I have a really hard time passing on Jake Golday. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, but I think going D'Angelo Pons here, really solidifying this secondary, bringing in Brian Cook, adding a true nickel guy who can make an impact. You've kind of been missing that ever since Mike Hilton's left as well.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Is he the best player on the board? Like in your eyes? Because I don't want you, because Jared, you and me, we're brothers, right? Don't feel like you're getting bullied into this pick. Don't let them bully you into this goddamn pick, okay? Do you act like actually because
Don't let him bully you out of this pick.
Our thought process should always be because listen, I don't want to draft here. Just 1 second, Jared. I don't want to draft a guy that does one particular thing really well, and the Bengals have a need, and they're going to draft the guy that does that one particular thing very, very well versus drafting a best player available, because this is why the Bengals find themselves in holes. We have a need at nose tackle. We're going to draft a nose tackle. The nose tackle might not be the best player on the board, but guess what? We have a need at nose tackle, so that's what we're going to draft. I just don't know if Pons is the best player available at this point in time. I get the value. You pick the you make the selection. I am like Duke Tobin. I am the de facto general manager. So guess what? You're the general manager. You're the general manager. You're the general manager. You're the general manager. We're all the general managers. So guess what? If the pick doesn't work out, there's nobody to blame because we're all the GMs. I just want to give you a different perspective because I'm all for alignment here, but I'm all for what the group agrees on. I'm just simply providing a different perspective. That's all.
I totally hear you on that, and I think my whole perspective on best player available versus where the defense is at, where the entire team is at, changes a little bit from pick 10 to the second round here. You really, the Joe Burrow years are dwindling here, maybe sooner than we'd like. And you have to find someone who's going to play nickel cornerback. And when I look at the free agent market, I don't see a whole lot of guys out there who can come in and play an effective nickel. And if you don't take Pons here, I'm really, really scared for what that position looks like in 2026 for this team. And it's a big position when you're in a division with Lamar Jackson. And you have to stop Derrick Henry, and you have to stop a Pittsburgh Steelers running attack that always finds a way to be effective. So a guy like Pons here, I don't know if he's the best player available, but he's pretty dang close. So I think that's a main reason why I end up leaning towards him. I do agree with what Logan was saying about Christian Miller as well. I think you can't go wrong with a Georgia defensive lineman. That would be another guy that I also really take a while to consider here on the interior. But ultimately, and especially after seeing his 40 time, I'm leaning Pons.
All right, Daniel.
All right. With the 41st pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, your Cincinnati Bengals select cornerback from Indiana, D'Angelo Pons.
Evan's laughing.
Yeah, Malik over here with the golf clap. Yeah, the unenthusiastic golf clap.
I'm the scout that's going to quietly move
Should
on
have taken a center there,
another.
goddammit.
No, I was just bringing up different perspectives, guys. I wasn't saying draft a center here. There was no center available that was the best player available.
Malik, can I speak to the D'Angelo Pons thing? I've been watching Pons, for a while now. I watched him back, last summer, and I remember I was super high on him before everybody else. Really got a chance to see him shine this past season. He's not for those in the chat. He's not just a nickel. You watch the 2024 tape against 6'4", 215-pound Denzel Boston. He went up over him for an interception. He beat him out at the catch point. This is a guy also that you think about being able to match up against Zay Flowers, the number one weapon in Baltimore for Lamar Jackson. D'Angelo Pons does more than just he's a guy that can play press man, and he's more of a smaller corners. People have to get this out of their minds. You don't have to press every rep. You don't have to get bump and run coverage. You can play soft press, soft shoe, study Darrelle Revis. He was the master at it. And you can literally be able to mirror and match receivers. But you go back to, what was it, the Big Ten championship game, the pick 6 against Ohio State. I believe that was the game where he sat flat-footed, read it, and broke downhill, took the ball away. He does different things than just play nickel. I want people to understand that him, Dax, and DJ a lot gives you the versatility to just match up with size, speed, movement skills, and it gives that secondary with a really a shot in the arm, honestly.
I want to piggyback off that because you really made a great point there. And I think it kind of illustrates what makes him special and why he's not just a nickel is that if you're out there thriving, especially as a smaller guy, and you're battling, like you said, these guys who have this significant height and reach advantage on you, that means your timing is excellent. Your ball tracking is excellent. Your understanding of leverage is excellent. If you can use the boundary as basically an extra defender, hey, it doesn't matter how big that guy is. If he's halfway out of bounds, it doesn't matter by the time he looks up. So I think that really speaks a lot to the intangible stuff, the things that make a guy like DJ Turner so good. Hey, yeah, every once in a while, he's going to be in perfect position. And yeah, a guy like DK Metcalf and a perfectly thrown ball will beat him. But there's so few times in the NFL you're going to get a perfectly thrown ball against the right coverage with the right leverage and the window and everything comes together. Like that's such a narrow range of outcomes that I find it hard to be like, no, that's a reason we shouldn't take them. Like if you really want to try and say, hey, we're just going to throw jump balls to D'Angelo Ponzol, cool, go for it. I encourage you to do so.
I think
100%.
that I kind of want to piggyback off of them is Dan kind of talked about how he matches up with Zay Flowers, but with drafting Ponce here in Cincinnati, the benefit we get of that is having a guy like Dax Hill. If these teams are going to go 12 personnel, these heavy personnel packages that are taking over the league, cool, we'll just slide Dax in the slot to cover your tight end and kick Ponce outside. And now we're chilling just as easily as we are with Ponce in the slot. It gives you so much secondary and coverage flexibility, which is just as important inside, outside as it is everywhere. Having that flexibility is a defensive coordinator's dream.
100%. I saw the chat. I saw people having that discussion, just trying to pigeonhole him as a nickel. He's not just a nickel, guys. He plays man. He plays off man. He plays catch technique. He knows how to. When you're watching corners, pay attention to their pre-snap leverage. Are they shaded inside? Are they shaded outside? Do they know how to funnel receivers' routes to the teeth and the strength of your coverage? Pons knows how to do all of that. He can pass things off if you're running zones and work what we call in scouting oily hips. He has that. He's got quick feet, everything. I'm telling you right now, Pons, yes, I get it. He's 5'9", but at some point, I'm like, we got to stop making football a beauty pageant. This is a game of skill, and you can look like a football player all day long. You got to play like one. I don't need a guy that just gets off the bus. What you going to do when you step on the field? Pons is a football player and a darn good one. So he plays on the outside. I'm leaving him out there. I'll let him match up whenever we need him to. He's a guy that absolutely can help the secondary.
Damn, you cooked there. You guys cooked there. I'm excited for the pick. And listen, in spots like this, regardless if I'm estatic, if the rest of the group is ecstatic as an organization, right? Because this is what we're talking about, alignment here. Do I sound like Duke Tobin? Yes. We're aligned. We're aligned here. We're excited for the pick. We
just like Duke Tobin, you didn't actually make the pick. Everyone else around you did instead.
You see, but you don't know that. You don't know. It was a collective.
Sorry, we'll pretend. We'll pretend we don't know that.
Decision. It was a collective decision. Hey, listen, we're here in the what is this? The third round now. And, we have a lot of potential choices to pick from. But before we get into it, if you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Listen, a lot of places you can go here. I'm going to push back right away, Daniel. We are not going to look at Dennis Sutton. That's not something we're going to do.
We did draft Ruben Bane as well.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we put that out there. There are some names, though, we can potentially go here, right? Eli Stowers, I wish I saw a little bit more this year. I don't necessarily always blame him. I blame the circumstances around him. I won't target a player or anything like that.
Lose 10 pounds, play wide receiver.
I will say Caleb Tiernan is a guy that interests me here. But Daniel, do me a favor. Go to the wide receivers for a second. I want to talk to you about a Bama boy. Now, listen, the last time I grandstanded for a Bama receiver, everyone said, Malik, you're wrong. In particular, Ryan Sparks. I've invited you on the show for the last 2 weeks. My producer, Marissa, has invited you on the show. You haven't responded. I know me and you've been trading barbs and all that. Hopefully one of these days you and me can get on the show. I know I was wrong about Jermaine Burton, and things didn't work out with Jermaine Burton. But we're going to go from one Jermaine to one Jeremy Bernard. And I'm going to talk about Jeremy Bernard because guess what? The Bengals are in need of a slot receiver or a third receiver, a guy that you can ask to do a lot of things, and Jeremy Bernard does a lot of that. Rather than me sell you on that, because I spent the beginning of the show talking a lot, I'm going to let the guy that actually went to Bama explain Jeremy Bernard and sell you on my pitch. Evan.
Yeah, I feel like any Bama fans who watched the team were very frustrated with how the offense looked a lot of times. Obviously, Ryan Williams has not developed into exactly what everybody thought he would be. Did you know he's only 17? Anyway, that's a fun joke. Jeremy Bernard was the best receiver, and honestly, I felt like the most reliable weapon for Alabama consistently. And they were getting him the ball in a variety of ways, which shows his versatility a little bit. He's not one of those straight line speed guys. He's more of that like more quick than fast kind of guys. But he is just really good feel for that leverage, that kind of like soft spots in zone underneath. And honestly, props to him for doing something that few people do anymore, is doing the 3-cone in the shuttle. So many people steering away from agilities. Just shout out to not being scared of that. 87% 3-cone drill shows that he has that little bit of a short area quickness, ability to get in and out of breaks. Just a guy who's really reliable. And I've talked constantly about how Tyler Boyd was such a vital piece for the Bengals passing attack when he was here, not necessarily because he was such an exceptional receiver, but because he was so dependable. And if you looked at the third, the fourth down, and the red zone numbers, Joe Burrow constantly went to him on what we call these money downs. And the conversion rate for Tyler Boyd on such opportunities was like top 10, top 15 in the league. And suddenly you take that away. And as much as I like Mike Gesicki as a part of the offense, he can't just be pseudo slot receiver. Now the problem is solved. It doesn't translate as well. Teams are more easily match up with a lot of your tight ends when they're all so specialized. When it's like, hey, Gesicki's out there, he's basically wide receiver. We don't necessarily have to match him with base and feel like we're in a compromised position. We can put a safety or a corner out there on him and feel like we can manage okay. Drew Sample, hey, put a linebacker on him. Heck, put a defensive lineman on him. Drew Sample's not running away from nobody. We're good, right? But I feel like that slot and that kind of underneath safety blanket kind of guy who's able to separate, create a little bit after the catch. He's not necessarily as explosive as like some of your more twitched up, like underneath receivers, but I think he's just physical. I think he has a good feel for the game, and I think he just plays his ass off all the time. I know the underlying metrics are not necessarily as flattering, and there are some slot options that I do like later in this draft. Surprising to see him at this point. I again, was pretty much set that you wouldn't have the opportunity to see him in the third round if he were to fall here. As much as I want to look at other positions, it would be tough not to try and look at adding a guy like that to the team who just immediately makes things better than trying to throw Yoshi Voss or Gesicki into that slot role and put that square peg into that round hole.
We're going to go to Coach Fulmer, Jared, and then DP, because I'm going to let DP make this pick. Coach Fulmer.
First off, I did kind of want to, agree with you for the offensive lineman here for a little bit. I do like Caleb Tierman a lot from Northwestern. Again, a big left tackle. I know he signed Orlando to that extension, but I don't want to get caught in a position where the offensive line is ever as big as the question mark as it has been. We're here in round 3 at this point. Yes, he might have to sit for right now, but it's still a player we should heavily consider. Anytime you can add a left tackle with some decent upside, you should consider it. But the guy I really wanted to talk about is Jashawn Barham from Michigan. I know he's going to have the edge tag here, and that might kind of deter us from it. And I do get that, but what he brings is that walk down linebacker. That's what he spent the 2 of the last 3 years doing. This was his first year as a true edge player this year at Michigan, but these last 2 years before that, he was that off-ball linebacker that played near the line of scrimmage. I mean, this guy is just an absolute powerful elite run defender. Think kind of like a Jalen Walker-ish kind of style of player where he's kind of making that transition, but at the very least for us, he would play that walk down linebacker role that can handle the line of scrimmage duties well and still kind of develop as that pass rusher if that's something we wanted to continue to do for him. There's just so much upside in there with him as a pass rusher, but at the very least, he is that walk down linebacker that can control the line of scrimmage and be an elite run defender. Again, we talk about AFC North style players. We talk about AFC North physicality and the ability to stop the run, the ability to play too high and dominate on the line of scrimmage. Adding a guy like Jashawn Barham really really, really does that. I know it kind of gets a little trickier by adding a guy like Ruben Bane, but he's truly one of the best players available to me. And like you said with Jared earlier, I'm going to pound the table for guys that I think are going to be good football players, can have an elite trade in the NFL, and can contribute to winning. And that's what I think Deshaun Barham can do.
Love it, Coach. Jared.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about Barham. I can totally see the fit there. To bring the conversation back to receiver, I know he's probably not a stereotypical slot guy, but Chris Brazzell from Tennessee is a guy who I think has the potential to be one of these gems at receiver that you see on day two. Some of these guys where they don't go in the first round, but you're like, how did they not? I think this guy's the potential to be one of the best, if not the best receiver in this draft class. Someone beat me to it in the comments section, but what I was loading up here with my pitch for Chris Brazzell would be probably not a guy who plays in the slot, but why not play Jamar there more? Create these mismatches of Jamar in the slot. We love to do it. And then imagine having guys with the catch radiuses of T. Higgins and Chris Brazzell on the boundary there with Jamar Chase in the slot. That's terrifying for opposing defenses. I know Chris Brazzell ran some routes for the Bengals. That news came out pretty recently. So there's some interest there. That would be a receiver that I look for. Not the slot guy who's going to replace that Tyler Boyd role, but Jamar Chase, the best wide receiver on the planet, sounds like a good option to play in the slot as well on those downs.
Dame, this is going to be your pick to make. But I first want to get your thoughts. Who's the best player on the board? Where do you think the Bengals should go? Because at the end of the day, we talked about Jeremy Bernard, we talked about Chris Brazzell, we talked about a lot of these guys. There are still some names that are on the board that could make this football team a whole lot better fairly fast. Give me your thoughts.
Man, I think you have some good options here across the board. You brought up Tiernan. I heard the combine talking to some O-line guys that they believe he could play probably all 5 positions on the offensive line. He gives you that type of versatility, especially at the interior spots. Brian Parker, the second out of Duke, that's another offensive lineman. I believe he played offensive tackle at Duke. This is a guy that teams look at as an interior offensive lineman as well. Of course, Markel Bell being the big guy out of Miami and everything. But what does the safety room look like? Because we went Ruben Bane, D'Angelo Pons. So we got safety. I'm not gonna lie, safety driving pretty quickly.
You're just trying not to explode.
Safety driving pretty quickly. Yeah. So all right. So I see what safety looks like. Right. Go to linebacker real quick.
Do you see the name that's at the top? Just curious.
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I absolutely do. See the name that's at the top. So we got Lawson. Kyle Lewis is a guy that I've talked to scouts. He's viewed as kind of a linebacker safety hybrid because he's one of the most fluid and explosive movers and coverage defenders in this class, and he's an undersized linebacker. So teams kind of starting to look at him like a kind of a hybrid safety. Some teams still want him at linebacker. The linebacker spot has, dried up a little bit as well. Man, that Chris Brazzell thing, I'm not gonna lie. That's he's my wide receiver, I think either 5 or 6 right now. So be able to get him in round 3 is a steal to me. At 6'4", 200 pounds, 4.37. Putting Jamar Chase in the slot just sounds absolutely terrifying for defenses because it's a lot harder to bracket a slot receiver than it is to bracket an outside receiver. You have more space for the receiver to release and more space to work with. And then that allows your outside guys to get the one-on-ones. T. Higgins get the one-on-one. Brazzell gets the one-on-one. I do like Jeremy Bernard as well, but receiver, there's a lot of receivers left. I'm not even going to.
Oh, while you're talking about Chris Brazzell, can I ask you, obviously we know all the concerns about the nature of the Tennessee offense as it stands. We had this conversation with Jalen Hyatt recently. Does any of that concern bake in or factor in, or is that already factored in? And that's why you're getting a guy of this stature, of this kind of potential and talent at this point, as opposed to a guy like Jalen Hyatt, who I think a lot of people would agree probably got overdrafted a little bit.
Yeah, I think with Hyatt, and I've tweeted this out many times during this draft cycle, Chris Brazzell is a much more nuanced and detailed receiver than any of the Tennessee receivers we've seen over the last couple years. And Hyatt, and there's no disrespect to him. He won the Biletnikoff and everything. He had no business being drafted where he was drafted. Like he was a one-trick pony. He didn't run none of his routes were. I didn't believe in his route running ability. And if anything, I always think about it from a defensive standpoint. How am I going to take you away? I'm going to play 2-man under. You don't have a catch radius. You don't there's not much left there. When I look at Chris Brazzell, I see a guy that's an easy mover. I see a guy that understands that I have elite speed and size and stride length.
Mhm.
And I know that you're afraid of that. So you see him be able to run the bench out, the blaze outs, the different routes in the short and intermediate. He's a 3-level route runner that DBs don't want. That Georgia tape, I know everybody talks about the Makai Lemon Iowa game. I get it. What Chris Brazzell did to Georgia, yeah, that was a different type of dominance because he beat them in every which way possible. Off coverage, he ran by him, double moves. Man-to-man coverage, he beat him with routes. He beat him vertically. I think with a guy like Joe Burrow, Chris Brazzell, his game would take it to another level with an accurate quarterback. And Joey Aguilar was fine. But, yeah, I really like Brazzell compared to, the main thing, when you ask about the offense, is that they run all that no huddle, and the coaches tell those guys to basically take plays off. Mm-hmm. You can't do that in the NFL. Right. And it's not that I don't think he has a problem not taking plays off. It's just what he's taught and what he's told to do. I'll tell anybody, go watch the Florida tape. Low red zone, they're running the football, and he's blocking his butt off against Devin Moore, the 6'3" corner from Florida. They're going at it. They're jawing at each other. You see the competitiveness. So I absolutely think it's in there. It's just more so what he was. Always remember this with scouting guys is what players are asked to do, not what they can't do. So a lot of times it's not that they can't do it. So for me, I want to go Bud Clark here, honestly. Chris Brazzell makes this a very difficult discussion for me because I love Brazzell and it would be a lot of fun. Fantasy people might not like it, for the fantasy community, but the Bengals fan base will absolutely love it.
Dame, can I just say one thing? I promised I would not speak that name. I would not into this situation. For those of you that didn't get that reference, I do want to talk about the offensive line spot. I don't like where the Bengals' offensive line depth is, to be quite honest with you. This is still your pick to make, but the same way I made a pitch to Jared before Caleb Tiernan does interest me because I have heard people give rave reviews about him, and you talk about one of the most high potent passing attacks in the NFL, right? The Bengals are a pass first team. That's the one thing he does really, really well at a very high level.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I say, you're one injury away from being in a bad spot. Who is your quote unquote swing tackle? It's Cody Ford, right? Yeah. Right now, your backup guards are Lucas Patrick, and you've got Jalen Rivers, but you're putting a big, I guess, amount of stress on a guy like Cody Ford to be that guy that can, hey, Cody, if this guy goes out, you can play guard, or Cody, you can play left tackle, or Cody, you can play right tackle, whatever the case may be. That's a very not fun situation to be in if you're the Bengals, Dame.
That's fair. That's fair.
Listen, Bud Clark is sitting here, and I am. Whatever you can do that, and I will not confirm or deny that I will not be jumping for joy. I just feel like the offensive line is one injury away from being in an unfortunate spot, and we're one offensive line injury away from talking about from what this season could have been versus what it could be per se.
No, for sure. I mean, 100%. And the fact that this is a franchise that struggled to protect Joe Burrow his entire career. In my opinion, you should probably take at least one offensive lineman every single season, every draft, just to build up the depth and the competition in the room. I said in my mind, I'm like, I'm not gonna let Malik sway me. I figured I said to myself, he's going to try and sway me on Bud. You didn't sway me on Bud. You swayed me on the offensive line. I want to go Caleb Tiernan here. And get the offensive line.
I like that, yeah.
And shore up everything, right? Be able to protect Joe, open up things in the run lane, and again, he could play multiple positions, and you find that spot for him.
I just want to tell everybody this hurts me. This fucking hurts me. Let me just be honest with you. This hurts me hard.
You did this to yourself. You have nobody to blame but you.
And it hurts
you
because
did.
you don't know how highly I view Bud Clark.
Yeah.
And I know what he could do for this secondary. And I don't know what Jordan Battle's future holds. I don't know what any of this, but I've got to go with who I think would be the best pick for this team. And although it wasn't my pick to make, I think the D'Angelo Pons thing helps you, sways you away from the Bud Clark thing in third round.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, this hurts. I can't lie. This hurts, man. I would have.
And I want to, you know, 'cause I know the chat's like, man, you want your third round pick to play, right? And don't get me wrong, I get that. What this does for me is bringing in Caleb Tiernan. I walk into training camp, the 3 interior line spots, the guards and the center. Yeah, you vets that are here, you got to battle with Tiernan. Like because I'm not in this is not college where we're doing seniority because you're a senior, so you got to play. No, you don't. Like, I'm getting my best 5 on the field. And so if Tiernan gets out there at guard and he's going up against all your interior defensive linemen and he's battling his butt off and he's winning these reps and, you know, one-on-ones, whatever the case may be, you're getting team drills and he looks like the best guard on your team, you start him and you play him. So that's how I look at that situation. You can never have enough offensive linemen. You can never have enough competition in the offensive line room. And I think for me, it's just, hey, let's make sure, because again, he can start at guard. He can absolutely start at one of the tackle spots if you need him to. But I think this is a guy that absolutely brings you just a steady Eddie. Third round, you could take some swings, but you get a steady Eddie prospect. Yes. That's really what you want in the third round.
Yeah, I want to let Coach Fulmer get in here and talk. This hurts me because we are in the fourth.
I know.
Clark is gone. And I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight, to be honest with you. That might be the Katy Perry, the one that got away. I don't know. But Coach Fulmer.
Yeah, with Tiernan as well, I love drafting an offensive lineman that exactly what Dame just said. You feel good about. I don't feel too high, too low about him. I know he can come in and just provide some stability. The Bengals are in such a weird spot with the backups on the line. Like, they got this weird thing with Cody Ford. His best plays has come as a receiver for the Bengals. The interior depth is pretty much non-really existent. Jalen Rivers still a little bit more TBD. You just need some excitement there. You need somebody you can rely on. You don't want to find yourself Orlando Brown needs to miss a week, or even Orlando Brown needs to miss a series in the third quarter in a one-score ball game. And now you got Cody Ford versus whatever world-class edge rusher is across from him, and you just don't like your odds. Having a guy that can just raise the floor of the offensive line is important in any organization, but that gets even more amplified here in Cincinnati when Joe Burrow has had the struggles with the offensive line he has. I am very glad we ended up going with an offensive lineman there, to be honest with you.
I want to throw something out there real quick. You go back to there's 2 instances with the Chicago Bears. Joe Tooney came over from the Chiefs as guard. I believe their left tackle went down. He kicked to left tackle. Years ago, the Patriots had a center, Brian Stork. I think they were in New York playing the Giants. Their right tackle goes down. The center kicks the right tackle to help protect Brady, and they brought in another. Having guys that can play all 5 positions, it's like a 5-tool baseball player. It's invaluable. So I understand that people are like, man, like we need somebody to come in and compete to start. Like I said, why can't he come in and compete in camp? Why can't he come in and compete? I don't think any of the interior offensive linemen are that solidified to where he can't come in. And the old adage is in camp, if it's close between a vet and a rookie, you go to rookie.
One thing I want to touch on here really quickly, because I see some comments in the chat, and we call you guys our virtual scouts, even though you guys aren't really joining us on the show virtually, but you're still in the chat. We greatly appreciate that. I see a lot of people saying, well, you don't want to draft the guy in the 3rd round who might play. And guys, I'll be honest with you, that's what you might be getting in the 3rd round.
That's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be in a position where you need to be drafting guys to play right now.
Your 3rd rounder should not have to be your all pro or your Pro Bowl player. If you're drafting for Pro Bowlers in the 3rd round, we got a problem.
Yes, the draft is for the future. Free agency is for the the here and now. I'll say this: as much as I wanted the Bud Clark pick, right? You're kind of faced with a similar situation. It's not like you don't have starters in the secondary right now with the D'Angelo Pons. You're drafting Pons, right? D'Angelo Pons is going to be that nickel corner, and you can obviously mix and match him. Then you have Brian Cook, who you added. You have Jordan Battle on the contract, so you're in a spot. If you are drafting a Bud Clark in that spot where he's going to have to fight for opportunities. You're going to see him in spots where maybe the Bengals run a 3 safety look. Well, then what would that look like as a whole on the defense? How does that change the defense? And then we're still talking about a guy that's getting limited snaps. He's not going to be out there as a primary starter. So I had to overcome overcome my emotional intelligence there. And I had to go with some strictly intelligence and go with the spot that I feel like helps build this team out. And here's where I think here. Daniel keeps moving around the board here. We're here in round 4. I just want to throw out a couple of names really quickly. And I want to get you guys everyone's thoughts, because we're now at a point now where we're now about to discuss this as a group. DeMonte Capehart interests me. Let me tell you why.
Yep.
I feel like he's a run stuffer. The Bengals, they wanted that in a guy like TJ Slayton, obviously. I feel like TJ Slayton has flashed, has shown he could do that. But I feel like you get a younger guy that you probably control for the next 4 years. You don't have to worry about extending him for a while. TJ Slayton was he signed a 2-year deal? 2 year.
Yeah, he's on the last year of his deal.
Yeah, so he's on the last year of his deal. So you're gonna have a question mark there. I don't know if you have another guy in the defensive tackle room who you feel good as being that nose tackle, that primary run defender. I feel like DeMonte Capehart does that for you. But Daniel, if you can go to the entire board. I'm sorry. Go to center.
I already see where I'm going.
I'm still looking at a guy like Sam Hatch here personally. You still do have an answer for when Ted Karras decides to hang it up. He was extended to another year deal, but to me, it's still, it's still a question. Zane Duran is also a guy that I like here at defensive tackle. Obviously, to me, I feel like, he said all the right things at the combine. He patterns the game after Geno Atkins. Geno Atkins is a Bengals legend. You turn on the tape, you feel like he left a lot of
Bengals fans' two favorite words. Geno Atkins. Bengals fans' two favorite words.
For sure. And so I look at it, man. I like some of these picks here. I don't know where I lean. This is where we should discuss as a group. But Evan, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I talked about it all last draft. I talked about it earlier. This is where I think need meets value in a really spectacular fashion. Skylar Bell here, man. Started with Wisconsin, transferred to UConn. Dude has been just nothing but stellar. Just produces at a crazy level. Average of 3 yards per route run. Per route run. Like that's absurd efficiency. Like that's Julio Jones level efficiency. Now that's NFL to college where we're talking, that's different range, but still that is the peak. That is the high range. And even despite being a little bit more slender, kind of struggling a little bit with physicality, still a 65% contested catch rate. He's good versus man and zone, ability to create separation using leverage, using his natural ability and his suddenness, his start and stop, his acceleration and deceleration ability. Those are his big positive aspects. Great feel for zone, good understanding for setting his guys up to get open. And I love that about him. And the big drawbacks are, hey, he's a little bit older and he struggles with physicality. But if you're putting him in the slot and you're asking him to get open and use his skills and find those open spots and then create after the catch, it's exactly what the Bengals need. You have a cheap option to complement your expensive options on offense for the next 3-4 years. And then you can trust this guy. And again, I don't care if he's 24, 25 right now. He can be 28 when the contract is up. That's okay. We've gotten 4 great years out of Skylar Bell. And if he wants to stick around longer, we can talk about that. But in the meantime, you get a guy who can be very productive. And if he's in the slot, I'm worried less about him being able to hold up, going against maybe some smaller corners, or at least being off the line of scrimmage to where he's not dealing with as much press, as much physicality. And he has that two-way go to where he has the ability to kind of use that space to his advantage to create more separation. And one thing I really just always stress with my wide receivers, I always like to take guys who are productive and good in college. He was productive and good in college. And the big thing with wide receivers is I want to see you have an understanding of leverage. I want to see you have an ability to separate, not just using your athletic ability. Because if you can't separate in college, as much as you can be a great contested catch receiver, Like N'Keal Harry was one guy who just, I always said, like, not separate well enough. And then if you can't separate in college, you can't separate in the NFL. You're going to struggle, and you can't rely on the contested catch game to do that. And as much as I am high on the Bengals offense as a whole with all the weapons and being able to score, I wouldn't call it one of the best designed or offenses for getting your guys open or playing to their strengths. So with that in mind, I love Skylar Bell. I think he's a great fit. I think it meets need and value. This is definitely where I'm looking right here.
Yeah, I definitely like Skylar Bell. If I'm looking at one of these names, and I'll put it up in a second, I like Georgia tight end Oscar Delp. That's the guy that I'm looking at. And I'm a sucker for a good tight end. I think that this is a very solid tight end class, in the round 2, round 3, and round 4. And I think that this is his range. We're talking day 3. This is not a star immediate starter. I'm looking for a guy that I can see potential with. And once again, this is a team with the Bengals, with us, that the tight end has the luxury of playing with Jamar, playing with T. You've got Joe Burrow, and the Bengals have taken swings, like guys like Tanner McLaughlin. They've taken Eric All. But this is a guy who didn't really break out at Georgia. I think his tape does leave a little bit to be desired, but I think he killed it at his pro day. Oscar Delp is a guy that I would definitely be looking at here in round 4.
Coach Wilmer, talk to us.
This one's kind of tough for me. To Evan's Skylar Bell point, I really like when you turn on a receiver's tape and you see UConn, wanting to get him the ball. And that's not just him being the outside receiver. Let's throw him the ball. No, it's, hey, let's get him outside. Let's motion him to the left. Let's motion him to the slot. Let's motion him to the backfield. Let's give him a jet sweep. Let's do all these things. Like, when you have a cognizant effort to get your receiver the ball, you can kind of tell that this is who they want to get the ball to. And I know UConn's not some big powerhouse, but his production speaks for itself. His usage speaks for itself. His ability to, not just play on one side of the field and to play everywhere is very fun. I'm very interested in a tight end as well. I've been a big proponent on that these last couple of drafts. I really do like Delp. The Bengals need a tight end that can play in line and provide some sort of dual threat ability between blocking and receiving. They just don't really have that. I know everybody wants to kind of look at Eric All right now and kind of hope that he can be that. I also like Justin Jolly a little bit here as well, a little bit more of your move tight end. But I think I'm really going to kind of go towards Malik's interior center offensive lineman stuff again. I really like Heck here from Kansas State. We took Pat Coogan. I like him a lot too. Just there's a lot of good centers left. And I think the Bengals cannot catch themselves in a position where they need that. They just can't. They have shown the ability to willingness to spend at other positions. They haven't really been big spenders on the offensive line ever. So adding a center here with the center of the future makes a ton of sense for me. I think there's good value with a number of these guys. If you want to play the waiting game and hope that Logan Jones or even Matt Goblin from Michigan State fall to you later, I don't mind that either. But I do think that is a position that needs to be considered here pretty heavily. I think that's where I lean right now. It just kind of depends your flavor of center that you really like here. I like Heck. Slaughter even. Everybody kind of laughed at how he looked at the combine, looking like your science math teacher or whatever it is. I'm a big proponent of continuing to add to this offensive line, just out of pure fear of the fact that the Bengals cannot find themselves in a position where they are behind in adding offensive linemen. They have to stay ahead of it and continue to add in that room. And I think this is another opportunity to do so where the value just kind of fits pretty perfectly here.
Stand on the table for a guy. Say a guy's name. People want the Bengals to draft here.
I think in this regard, I think I like Jake Slaughter the most here. I just think he's a little bit more powerful with what he has. I think Heck's a little bit of a better mover to me. But Slaughter just kind of I hate it. I hate bringing it up, but the Bengals whole glass eater thing, as annoying and corny as it is, like Slaughter fits that mold, I think, here more than anybody. I think he has some more of that power to his game. And kind of, I think that's kind of what the Bengals need in the interior. I think they have a bunch of good athletes with Mims and Fairchild around them right now. I think having some power in the middle to kind of potentially boost some of the run game struggles in the short yardage is kind of why I'd lean Slaughter. But I truthfully am open to a lot of these centers. I just think Slaughter comes out a little bit higher for me.
Guys, we are at a crossroads right now. Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Sam Hecht and Skylar Bell, both great values here. Guys who can really contribute to the offense, either in a depth role or Skylar Bell, maybe even immediately this season. But a guy, Zane Durant, sitting right here, 290 pounds, the athleticism, the strength he possesses. He's talking about Geno Atkins. He's a Bengal already. Sign me up. A guy that
pandering to the comment section. You are pandering to the comment section.
But I'm not. This is a guy who I saw he was on the board. I immediately went to. I really like the player. That's a guy I'd look at. And I know you guys are going to say the comment section as well, but I'm getting a little nervous here with linebackers. And are we going to be able to get a guy who's even going to be able to hang around the roster? Might be a little too late, but
you know who's not nervous about linebacker the Bengals.
Yeah, if you ask them, they'll say they're in the best position they've ever been in at linebacker. But I would definitely like to see who's on the board there, and
Yeah, I think we're in a weird spot right now. I don't know. I think we're at we're locking.
It's about to get weirder. Because I think I'm looking at the line. So those two players that came out, all the names you guys brought up were like Skylar Bell, everything, right? I'm looking at Kyle Lewis and then DeMonte Capehart. And I look at Kyle Lewis because of, I think, what we talked about at the Combine, Malik. Your linebackers right now, you have guys who can be thumpers, right? Talking about spill and splatter and all of that. You don't have that coverage guy. Kyle Lewis would give you that coverage guy. And I also think he would give you that, again, that kind of overhang linebacker safety hybrid to where, okay, we missed out on Bud Clark, but we could get a Kyle Lewis that can play that role as well. And a guy that can drop off in the middle of the field, get depth, great, hand-eye coordination. You see his ability to make plays on the football in coverage, but he keeps his head on the swivel as well. And then he's an extreme athlete, easy mover, easy gas, change directions on the dime. This is the type of guy at the linebacker spot. Now, again, especially with those, like Demetrius Knight's more of a big, physical, thumping type of linebacker. I'll let him play the mic if I need to. Was it Barrett Carter you drafted last year?
Yep.
If I'm going to play in base situations, I'm taking Kyle Lewis to let him be that will linebacker, see ball, get ball, blitz, drop off in the coverage. You do have to fix that linebacker spot, but if you don't go linebacker, I truly think of DeMonte Capehart on that defensive line at D tackle. I remember watching him just fully accordion an offensive lineman, just power, strength, and collapse the guy's entire frame with a bull rush. So, like, you talk about adding some power and strength and aggressiveness to your D-line, he brings that as well. But my pick would be Kyle Lewis.
Dave, I got a question for you. And it's kind of about Kyle Lewis and these people that come into the draft and are these tweeners, like they don't really have a true home. How do you kind of value that? Like how hard is it, or how difficult is it to kind of find a home and a ranking and the thought process for them as a draft evaluator? Like, how difficult do people that kind of come in and do a little bit of everything, don't specialize in anything, how difficult is it to kind of try to project and find a home for them for you?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult, right? And I think, when we talked about this at dinner in the Combine, a lot of scouting is studying and grinding the tape and everything. And what separates people in the industry, a lot of it is also like information gathering and finding out, okay, the instincts of a player. And then, like watching a guy, and I'm sure, Coach, you watch the guys and you're like, okay, I could tell he studies film just by the way how quickly he reacts, how quickly he triggers. You could tell guys who are late to the ball, late to the trigger, and guys who trigger quickly. I think he's a guy that does, the instincts are there. He's just more so from a build standpoint. I got to protect you. I got to keep those guards off of your frame.
Yeah.
I got to do that. That's the number one thing. So in terms of if you come out and if you're in an even front 4-3 on base, I'm probably widening him out into that little overhang spot a little bit, making those guards and those linemen, you got to travel out there to him, and that gives him time, that gives him space between them, and it allows him to be able to maneuver around those potential guys trying to come to the second level. But not naturally, you want your D tackles to eat up those blocks of those guards and centers to where they can't get up there upfield to him at all. So it's definitely difficult, man. Trying to find those guys, like Isaiah Simmons is probably the poster child of that. where he played corner, safety, linebacker, edge, probably some D tackle at Clemson when he was coming out, and then we get to the Arizona Cardinals. It's like, yeah, what do we do with you, bud? Like, we don't know, and that's the biggest thing is if you're going to draft a guy like this, through the pre-draft process, your DCs, when you're interviewing these kids, put them up on the whiteboard. Hey, where do you? Cause I remember Arvin Reese said this at the combine. Everybody was asking, hey, where do you want to play? Where are teams asking you to play? He said, teams asked him, where do you want to play? And he said, edge. And then they was like, well, what did the teams want you to play? He said, edge. Have a plan. Whatever it's going to be, have a plan. And I think if you do that, good coaches, when you have a plan for a player, you could absolutely figure out how to make them a weapon. Good coaches are able to do that.
Man, we're locked horns here, guys. We are locked horns here. You know what? I was going to let Evan make the pick.
Oh, were you?
I was going to. I swear I was going to.
Don't do it.
But I'm not going to let you. I'm going to let Dame make the pick here for the Bengals. Because if it does, that way they can't say it was us.
I like that.
I have no emotional ties.
Any responsibility.
I have no emotional ties to any NFL teams. I'm all about making teams better.
Mm-hmm.
Dame loves the NFL. So let's go Kyle Lewis. Let's give Al Golden a chess piece on this defense, and an explosive athlete, a guy that can do pretty much anything and everything. And I just love what he brings to the table. He can blitz, he can run, he can do a lot of things, but I do believe in that second level capability for him. Like I said, just have a plan, make sure your defensive line is doing their jobs, and Kyle Lewis is going to be able to make plays for you. And then you think about the fact that with his athleticism as well, dealing with the Lamar's not running as much as he used to early in his career. And I understand why he wants to prolong that career. He saw what had happened to Cam Newton, and we've seen the hits that mobile quarterbacks have taken in their careers. You want to extend this thing and play as long as you can. But I would say he's going to use his legs. Like, they're going to use his legs.
Yeah.
A Kyle Lewis can be that matchup problem to where he can be in your sub package. And if Lamar does come out of the backfield, that makes a lot of sense where he can track him.
Man, listen, I walk away feeling like this draft so far, it's going weird. It's not what I expected. I didn't expect this. Last week's mock draft made me feel like, yeah, this one, I don't know how I feel just yet.
You're getting better on defense, Malik. You're getting better on defense.
Yeah, but you should have. Last week we got really better on defense. We got really better. We got Ruben, Jacob Rodriguez, and Bud Clark in the first three rounds. This one's been
your mock draft simulator took some of those guys off the board. You know what I mean? So there's not much we could have done.
Not me, not mine. I mean, mine, but not mine. You know what I mean? Like, if it was up to me, then a lot of guys would have still been there. Sonny Styles made it to the second round for us. It was up to maybe it was my way. But how do you feel about the Kyle Lewis pick? Logan, talk us through. What are your thoughts on that pick?
I think with Kyle Lewis in general, I'm a big fan of athletes that just run around the field and make a ton of plays. And that's exactly what he is. I think you're going to probably have to get a little bit more creative with him in terms of the Bengals. I think he's a good complement to what we have. As everybody knows, I was a massive Barrett Carter fan last year, not as high on Demetrius Knight, but I like the way these three fit together now. I think you have the guy that can just stand in the middle with Demetrius Knight, Barrett Carter, a little bit more of a traditional guy, and then you have Kyle Lewis, this just fun dynamite of a player that flies around, can make plays on any level of the field. You can get creative with his usage. You can play him as the overhang. You can play him in slot a little bit. You can play him, you can blitz him. You can drop him into coverage. You can just get really creative with him. And I talked about it a little bit when we drafted Pons earlier with the flexibility that you get. Now you get even more of that because you can move him around more. You can move him around in coverage more. You can blitz him more. You just get more creative. When you get more creative, you become less predictable. And becoming less predictable is obviously a very big deal in the NFL and just in the coaching world. What can I show you? How can I confuse you? And the more you have these players that can do a bunch of different things or can complement each other well, the more success you're going to have. And I think adding a guy like Lewis really allows a defense coordinator to do things like that.
Man, let me just say this. I feel like you guys that are watching us, we got over 174 people watching us live right now. We greatly appreciate you doing that. you guys got to be draft nerds. You guys got to freaking love this, right? Watching us on a Wednesday night talk about Kyle Lewis and all these different prospects that can help the Bengals in the later round. This is what it's about. This is why we do it. Again, if you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Tomorrow I have a video, 30 plus minutes of me and Trevor Sigma discussing a lot of these prospects and how they could potentially fit for the Bengals. Some things might shock you. He gave his prediction for where the Bengals might go at pick 10. Certainly shocked me. But we're here in, what is this, round 6 now? Let's run through these picks, guys. We all, just so you guys know, Dame and Jared, we always get to the later rounds and we spend an absurd amount of time.
So we weren't going to do that this year.
We weren't going to do that this year. And we've already been live now for an hour and 40 minutes. And you guys have been so gracious with your time. But boys, let's get through some of these picks. I'll tell you right now, someone said earlier, J.C. Davis, Malik, Illinois' tackle, is a prospect that you would love here in the 6th round. I still want to see who's available at center too, Daniel. Okay. Yeah, Pat Coogan is still available here. Logan Jones is still available here. I want to run through this, guys. I want to run through this because we're honestly trying to find the value here. You got Cincinnati receiver Jeff Caldwell. That was a guy that Logan I talked about last week here on the show. Where do we think is the most value in this spot? What's the board looking like, Daniel, overall? Okay. Dame, talk me through it.
Yeah, let's see. So like Caldwell, as a developmental outside receiver, Pat Coogan, love that guy, especially in the value in this particular spot. Caleb Douglas.
For the people that say for Pat Coogan, hey, he doesn't play in a pro style offense, he plays in an RPO system. That was some of the comments we got last week. What were your thoughts on that?
It's the same thing, because that's a knock on Mendoza, and it's more so about the offense that the coaches are calling. And, it's not so much about, hey, Pat Coogan can't play in a standard offense. Like, no, I mean, it's a lot of offensive linemen that come from these spread and, RPO offenses. It just, the coaching, it gets different once you're in the NFL. So I think Pat Coogan will be just fine. J.C. Davis is there. Case Casey's a solid guy as well on the O-line. Like Austin Barber, too, from Florida. So there's definitely some depth offensive line pieces here. But scroll back down. There was a corner that I was surprised he's still here, honestly. If I saw it correctly, that Xavier Harris kid is still there. Ephesians Prysock. If you wanted to add another corner, like in everything, he's 6'3". This was a guy that he likes to be physical at the line of scrimmage, big, tall drink of water at the cornerback position. Physical dude. Everybody loves. We love Cardell Tate, and why they didn't let him do it a lot against Tate, the reps he was able to show against just physical press coverage, the rep he did have, he locked Tate up, and it's like that's a hard guy to get hands on and everything. So I think there's some good options for the Bengals here on the board. The Xavier Harris one makes a lot of sense too, since we haven't added a defensive tackle.
That is true. I wanted to look at defensive tackle really quickly if we can. Okay. I thought Zane Durant would still be there somehow. I was praying Zane Durant would be here somehow. Listen, guys, we don't want to be here all day. Let's make these picks, man. Let's how you get to the Saturday and then those picks just start rattling in.
Oh yeah, yep.
Let's let these picks start rattling. What are your thoughts?
No, I like the idea of going offensive line, man.
Yeah.
As much as the Cody Ford experience has been a delight, I would feel better with any other options backing up the offensive line. So I like going the idea of J.C. Davis, Pat Coogan, any of those guys. I'm game for it.
So we're picking at 189 right now, but we pick again in 10 picks. Mm-hmm. Do we want to take a chance and maybe think Pat Coogan could still be there in 10 picks? Or do we want to pull the trigger
So just take the player you want right now, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, take the player you want.
I'm going to get cute with it. Now. Dame, are you taking J.C. Davis here or Pat Coogan? What are you doing?
I'll probably say
you're talking about solidifying your offensive line here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what we're discussing, honestly.
I'd probably go Pat Coogan, honestly. I really like Pat's mentality and his play style and demeanor as well, especially in the run game.
Okay. Let's do it. Let's take Pat Coogan. All right. I know this was a guy that Coach Fulmer raved about last week on the show, and you guys kind of go back and see us when we discussed that pick at length. So let's go to the entire board, Daniel, please. We pick again in 10 picks. See who else might come available here. We're back up. JC Davis is still staring at us for whatever reason. The league just does not like JC Davis. If you guys could do us a favor again, give this video a like. We greatly appreciate you. Appreciate all y'all watching the show. Daniel, give us your thoughts on who's available on the board. Where would you go?
Yeah, I definitely like the JC Davis action. And for me, the biggest thing I was happy with is that we got one of those centers. At the end of the day, Pat Coogan is a guy that I was circling heavy. And once again, at this spot, I really don't care if you double up or you triple up on positions, because the way I look at it is I'm going to take a bucket of these players and one of these guys. Because at the end of the day, day 3, if you have one guy that turns out to be a great starter, that's a win. So I definitely like the JC Davis pick here.
This is a nod to Marissa here. Can we talk about Drew Allar?
Mm-hmm.
I know that we had brought Joe Flacco back. 1-year deal. Expensive 1-year deal. I like Drew Allar. I like his potential as a backup quarterback for Joe Burrow. I really do like that. And I get it. Some people might say, no, we don't need him. Draft somebody else. I feel like drafting Caleb Tiernan where we did makes me feel better about the offensive line. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Drafting Pat Coogan where we did makes me feel better about what we did. You mean to tell me I can get Drew Allar, a guy that, honestly speaking, could have been a second-round pick, maybe a back-end first-round guy had he had a better year. Obviously, we know he had a catastrophic injury. He looked all right at the combine. I know Dame and me were sitting down watching him do his throws, and he's like, not a lot of velocity on that. Not a lot of control on those out routes. Can we talk about Drew Allar? Because I think this is a spot where I'd be okay with taking a swing on him. We even got Cade Klubnik still available. But honestly, Drew Allar interests me. I would be interested in a Luke Altmaier too, but Drew Allar really does interest me here. Dame, what are your thoughts on that? And Jared, I want to get your thoughts after Dame speaks.
Toolsy quarterback, developmental guy, big arm, size, functional mobility, can make every single throw in the book. Talking about driving the ball in the middle of the field, he can access all 3 levels. And the main thing for him is just more so just his mechanics, and then it's just the decision making. And I think being able to sit back and watch a guy, one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, be able to sit back and watch him prepare every single day, every single week. Makes a lot of sense. And then at the same time, you go back to Bill Belichick's old adage when he was with the Patriots. He drafted the quarterback almost every single year, even especially when he had Tom Brady, because he understood the value of it. And that, hey, I have my QB1 and QB2 locked up. I still draft a guy because I can develop him, and then I can trade him off for a pick. So I think if anything, you able to get and think about the fact of Drew in this offense with the weapons that you have, stuff like that. If he ever got on the field, I would feel a lot better with him throwing to, Chase and T than throwing to, I don't remember who he was throwing to at Penn State.
Yeah. And you know what? I won't speak. Jared.
The one thing that I think I've learned since Joe Burrow's been in Cincinnati is you can never have enough quarterbacks. I'm not married to the idea of Josh Johnson being QB3 heading into 2026. And I think why not bring a guy like Drew Allar in, who's had at times, he had that really high pedigree. Obviously it didn't work out for him a whole lot at Penn State, that awful injury, but bring him in, let him battle it out with a veteran like Josh Johnson. Like Dame said, he's going to, if he ever sees game action, which hopefully drafting a quarterback this late, he won't, he's throwing to the best receiving core, in my opinion, in football. So I don't see why not. If you believe in the talent, you like the meetings you've had, bring him in and let him fight for that QB3 spot behind Flacco. Logan,
let's get your thoughts. Drew Allar, does he make sense here?
Yeah, I think any quarterback can make sense here. I don't want to say I was pretty excited about Drew Allar coming into the year. Not like I thought it was going to be some some big time prospect, but I was just excited to see what he could do. You know, he's got a lot of the traits like everybody likes. I think the idea of adding a backup quarterback here, I mean, we're in the 6th round, and then unfortunately the Bengals have had to use a backup quarterback way more often than I think any of us would like. I like the idea of adding some youth to the room. I like Drew Aller in general. For some reason, I kind of like the idea of adding a little bit more ability to the room with Sawyer Robinson or Clay Klubnik as well. I kind of like, you know, when you're in the backup quarterback world and you're dealing with that game planning, you know, perspective, if something's going wrong, it's nice to know I can have that quarterback rushing ability to fall back on a little bit. I think those two kind of provide that a little bit more, obviously, than Drew Aller. It's a preference thing. At that point, I'm all for adding a backup quarterback here. I like Drew Aller is just in terms of him just sitting in the pocket and making throws. If you want to get some little bit more ability, I like Sawyer Robinson and Kate Klubnik a little bit too.
I want to make sure this pick is, because I feel like there are still some value guys here on the board. Before we turn that slip in, there's one guy I want to see if he's still available. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about him in the comment section. Caden Curry. I want to see if he's still available. Dame, talk to me about him. You're muted.
So yeah, I realize that. This guy plays with strength. He plays with leverage, shorter arms. So and wingspan and arm length is always going to be a subjective fact because it's a fact that the arms are short. It's going to be subjective of how you look at it and whatnot. It impacts the player. You remember the Big Ten, the hit against Mendoza in the Big Ten championship game. He got after the quarterback a lot this year.
Yeah.
Solid player. Definitely a rotational guy, more so than anything. Probably be a good special teamer for you as well. I would probably look at D tackle though, and see if there's I think it's Xavier Harris, one of those big run stuffers that keep. Listen, we drafted Kyle Lewis, so we need somebody on the D line to keep him clean so he can run around and make some plays.
Make the pick, Dame.
Xavier Harris. Let's go D tackle.
Yeah.
All right.
Beef up the trenches, baby.
Beef up the trenches. I'm here for it.
In a large way. Large human being.
Listen, man, we've got two more picks here. And you get to the draft, and at this point, we went against our judge. We did not draft Drew Aller here. We had some scouts in the comment section saying, absolutely not. Do not draft Drew Aller. I like what he could potentially be for this Bengals team.
He's still on the board.
Man, listen.
There's still time.
There is still opportunities.
Figure out what happens. How are we feeling overall about the draft so far? While this thing is moving a little slow, how do we feel about the mock draft so far? Get Ruben Bane Jr. in the first round, D'Angelo Pons, second round, Caleb Tiernan in third, Kyle Lewis, Pat Coogan, Xavier Harris. How are we feeling about this mock draft so far? Let's go, Coach Wilmer. Let's talk to you.
I really like it because I feel like it is a clear and obvious investment into the trenches here. But not just with we're not just blindly addressing the trenches like a team that feels like they need to. There's some more thought process and some more intent with it. I mean, we have all discussed Ruben Bane a ton. There's not much to do that, but even back down to Xavier Harris there, a massive nose tackle prospect that can fill so many holes on your defensive line easily. Than Coogan and Tiernan, these are depth guys. These are specialized players that can do a number of things for you. They make sense in a team that needs to address the trenches so much, but they're not just blindly addressing it. There's depth, there's intent behind them. But we still added some flair. We still added Pons. We still added Lewis. It's not like we're just, kind of drafting basic and doing everything. We've really blended drafting in the trenches with some of the high value, high upside players with Pons and Lewis.
All right. Well, listen, we're back here in the 7th round. We promised that we'd run through this thing. Drew Aller is still available. Do we have any objections?
I'm good with it.
Any objections? Coach Fulmer, are you good with it?
I'm cool with it.
All right. Let's draft Drew Aller here in the 7th round because it's a 7th round pick. If he turns into something, we are all smiling. We all look like geniuses. We draft Drew Aller with one of our 2 7th round picks. Jared, give me your thoughts so far on the draft as we wait for our final pick to come up.
I really, really like it. I feel like it's a great balance between the best players that are falling on the boards to each pick, but also filling needs on the roster. I think defense, you knew you needed to get talent infused at every single level, really, of that defense. And I think this draft did that. I was really big on somehow coming out with a linebacker, whether that's a guy like Sonny Styles falling to you at 10, didn't end up happening. Or I was hoping some guys in the second, but we ended up going Pons. I love the Kyle Lewis pick in the 4th round. I think that's a guy exactly what the Bengals really need from that position group. So I'm thrilled with that pick. And then I also like that Caleb Tiernan pick in the 3rd round. I think Joe Burrow, you have a sports car, you buy insurance on that sports car in a division that has Trey Hendrickson, as weird as that sounds now that we're going up against Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt and company in Pittsburgh. You gotta have insurance on that sports car, and you're getting double the insurance with Caleb Tiernan. Can play all 5 positions, and just a great 6th offensive lineman to have off the bench. So I love this draft.
Evan, I want to get your thoughts on the draft before we slide in our last pick.
Yeah, Ruben Bane Jr., obvious, easy pick there. Pons, I feel like was another easy pick there. I love adding the O-line depth. I know everybody wants to get a starter with every single one of these picks, guys. And even if you pick every single position that you want to address here, acting like more than 40 or 50% of them are going to be hits is very optimistic at best. So we have to be realistic. You're not going to be able to fill every need. So what do you need to do? You need to make sure that you shore up your depth, take good players so that you free yourself up in the future to utilize every avenue, whether that is free agency, trade, draft, to keep your options open. Saw a bunch of people reference what the Eagles do. Hey, if you double up on guys, well, hey, you have an exceptional position group you can rotate in and utilize in very specific scenarios to yield the best results. So it's not necessarily just a bad thing. Adding to that depth, I mean, go to the Bengals depth chart and play, hey, we lost 1 injury at every position and see how great you feel. Because as weird as we feel about edge, that we're taking 1/10 overall, edge might be the only position on the roster that I feel good about if someone goes down just because of what's behind it, which is really scary to think about. So when you look at the corners, especially when you look at the linebackers, I think a lot can be won from this draft, not necessarily from getting starters, but getting guys who can be rotational players for you early in the next 2-3 years as you develop them, see what they can be, and potentially have those guys be long-term starters for you. I think that's what this draft is going to be about for the Bengals, trying to add to that depth that you've really lacked sorely as your roster is decayed and you've missed on some draft picks and haven't been able to necessarily retain or sign more talent than you're letting out.
Absolutely.
Listen, we're in the 7th round. Daniel, I want to get your thoughts. And then, Dame, I'm going to let you bring us home with the final selection, the final pick. I am looking at Skylar Gill-Howard, obviously smaller dude here, 6'1". We already took a shot at defensive tackle. I feel like we kind of beat the defensive line up a little bit. But you could always – listen, you can never have enough depth there, especially with the Bengals. They need somebody to rise to the top. Daniel, what are your thoughts on this draft before Dame brings us home?
Yeah, for the draft as a whole, I'm extremely happy about it. I think this is – honestly a realistic option if Ruben Bane is on the board. I mean, you get 2 guys from 2 big-time schools. We know the Bengals love to do that. And for me, I look at the first 2 rounds, and respectfully, if those 2 guys hit, that is a fantastic draft. You get the dominant pass rush. And as far as the rest of the guys, I think the one I'm probably most excited about is probably Pat Coogan. And maybe this sounds repetitive because, they tried it out with Matt Lee, but I do think that Pat Coogan, for me personally, I value a guy who started for 2 straight seasons. I value guys played in big-time games, and that's what Pat Coogan did this season. So I'm in day 3. He's probably my favorite pick, and I love this draft.
Yeah, I feel like the Raiders probably would not let that guy go that long without probably swooping him up. Can we just, while Dame gives his thoughts on this last, we look at the offensive tackle quick, and Dame, give us your thoughts on this final pick. Take us home.
Yeah, it's you're looking for usually around this part. You're looking for guys that's going to be able to compete in camp, see if they can find a role for the team, special teams, for sure as well. So you look at like some of the running backs you just saw, Jaden Jamari Taylor's, Desmond Reed being a guy that could be a special teams ace as a punt returner, kick returner. He's a really good receiving back out of the backfield. But the one position group I want to look at is wide receiver. See, because this was a deep class, And when you look at just the names that's going to be available here, Kobe Young, big guy, Adam Randall, who's a running back, receiver, hybrid, Squirrel White, who, when he was at Tennessee, he was a nice playmaker for them. But the guy I actually think, will make some good sense here. I actually really like. Now you could go Chris Hilton Jr., but I think he at his pro day, they had him doing DB workouts too. So I don't know if the NFL knows what they want to do with Chris Hilton Jr. Right now. I would look at Louisville's Colin Lacey. Route runner, yards after catch, shifty, short area quickness. I think he can give you that special teams ability, a guy that can win one-on-one. He can run the choice and option routes against zone coverages and things of that nature. He can be like that easy button. I'm always a fan of giving quarterbacks an easy button in the slot, right? So you're talking about being able to let him come in and rotate in. You got Chase outside. You got T. Higgins outside. He walks into the slot, and he got a favorable matchup. Him and Joe Burrow on the same page. Think about how many times we've seen Julian Edelman catch and Danny Amendola, Troy Brown. Man, it felt like there's so many of them in New England. Catch those little 5-yard choice routes and take it upfield for 7 more, 1st and 10, 12-yard gain. I think a player like Colin Lacey can fill that type of role in this offense, which I was always shocked that they never really invested into a true bona fide slot over the years. I think he can end up being a guy that comes in, competes, finds a role, and then works his way up the depth chart.
They wanted Charlie Jones to be that. They wanted Charlie Jones.
Yeah, listen.
Yoshi Boss could be a guy.
Yoshi Boss is my guy too. That's my boy, man. I spent a lot of time with him at the Senior Bowl when he came out. One of the nicest dudes, nice people I ever met. He's not really a slot to me. I think he's more of an outside boundary receiver, and unfortunately for him, you guys already have that. So I think Colin Lacey makes the most sense to me.
Colin Lacey makes the most sense. I'm trying to think. Should we go with him or should we let Daniel get his guy?
Who's his guy?
Adam Randall.
I'm a big fan of Randall, and I'll just speak for literally 20 seconds. I mean, 6'2", 230, and we're talking about a guy that was a receiver, turned to running back, and this is maybe one of my favorite builds of a running back. I do like the bigger body build, and this is a guy in this class specifically. Like, you're getting an outlier. And I remember we were watching it at the combine, and we were watching this guy run routes. And as a running back doing that, especially in this offense, something you have to do. I just think in the 7th round, at some point, 6th round, I think a team really is going to get a steal with Adam Randall.
Let's get Colin Lacey.
Yeah, I like it too.
All right, 278th pick, Cincinnati Bengals take Colin Lacey. And that brings us home for State of the Jungle War 2.0. Listen, boys, I feel like we addressed a lot of needs. This is a weird one. I'm going to let this one digest a little bit. I don't know how I feel about it. Last week I came away feeling very...
It's not sexy, Malik. That's all. It's not a sexy draft. You know what I mean? But this one of those drafts is more meat and potatoes. It's more meat and potatoes. Less dessert, more meat and potatoes.
Good little change up.
Mm-hmm.
Less dessert.
You're right.
This is a filling draft.
Yeah. I feel, yeah. Cool. But no, listen. I appreciate y'all, man. Again, Dame, you guys he does great work over at Bleacher Report. He's an NFL draft scout. He does a great job all year long. He's been a good friend of mine, man. I love talking ball with you. Love breaking down these prospects with you. And this is a long time overdue having you on State of the Jungle. And Jared, kudos to you too, man. You did a great job, brother. Again, Jared runs the largest Bengals Instagram page, man. Bengals Central. If you guys are not following me, you got to be following them. I know that sat down with a couple of players and they say, "Wait, you know Bengals Central?" I remember I was talking with who was it? Shamar Stewart. We wound up FaceTiming you, and I know that was pretty awesome. But man, you guys all do great work. We appreciate that you guys spent your Wednesday evening with us. This certainly went a lot longer than I expected. 2 hours. 2 hours. You guys sat with my ugly ass face. 2 hours, and we broke down all these picks, all these prospects. But we appreciate y'all, man. Make sure you guys give them a follow. You guys can follow all of their work down in the description below. We're going to let you boys go. But listen, that's it for State of the Jungle War Room 2.0, man. We'll be back next week. Same time, same crew, same location, the First Star Logistics studio here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Man, but as always, until next time, Hoo day.
This is TW.